Over the next 1 hour, we shall try a few things. And the whole idea is, you've heard of this word called omnichannel. It's a brand new word. Just got evolved just after lunch. How many of you have heard about omnichannel? None. Great. That's why I said it's new, right? I know we've been talking about omnichannel for quite some time, and in very recent times, right from 9:30 today morning. We shall try and keep this very relevant, which is where I will need your help. If you think the panel members are going to be very nicey-dovey, step in. Okay? This session is different. You don't get to ask questions at the end of the session. You get to ask the questions in the middle of the session. Wherever you believe you have a pertinent question, Izzat rakh lena yaar, okay? So it has to be pertinent. Please raise your hands, and I'll make sure that something reaches you so that you can ask the question. Now, before we get onto the panel and line them up here, I thought let me just lighten up the mood a bit. So Retail Next is a company in the US. They went to a shopping mall about a couple of years back, and they did a small survey. Asked a very, very innocuously simple question: what do you mean by omnichannel? Right? Pretty interesting to hear the responses.
What?
Omni is all, but I don't know.
No.
Omni-channel. Any idea what omni-channel is?
What is it?
Omni-channel.
Omni, say, can you spell it? I have no idea.
Omni-channel. Sounds Amish, but no, I haven't.
Many-channel,
Well,
all-encompassing.
Is it online or on the TV or what?
Omni, people who work together daily to try to make the world as easy as possible.
Sounds like a channel for...
I don't know what it means, but I've always wanted to look into it.
Sounds like something like you could...
Sounds like a TV channel.
I have no idea.
Like multiple,
like omnipresent, yeah.
Yeah, omni-channel
like
might mean multiple.
always around or always there.
Omni. I'm hungry right now, so I'm thinking of food.
I think it's something interactive and fast forward, fast paced, just visionary. That's what it sounds like to me.
Omni-channel?
I was thinking of some kind of Japanese cartoon.
I would assume...
Is it a TV channel? You work for a cable company. No.
A channel that does everything.
a multiple resource of some form?
I would think Omni-channel is a channel of all the things together. Everything that we know culturally, basically.
I'm thinking scientists, brother.
I'm thinking the future.
The robots.
The future, something like that.
If you say omni-channel, I'm thinking all sales channels. So that would be online, in-store, direct-to-customer, like kiosk marketing, basically, where they hand out samples and things like that. So that would be like another channel, sales channel. That's what I think.
You guys didn't feel like laughing at all somewhere? Then what happened? Okay, guys, so laugh out loud, and over the next 1 hour, what we shall do is, we have an interesting panel up here. Before I request him to kind of call them up, it's a good mix. We've got a gentleman who runs a marketplace. We've got a gentleman who runs a mall, who is responsible for a mall. We've got a gentleman who takes care of a large apparel brand. And interestingly, we've got someone who also is in the Medi-spa business. I learned yesterday that Medi-spa is a new term. Right? And then, last but not the least, we have a gentleman who is very experienced in the field of providing services to technology services to retailers across the country, as well as in Asia, Middle East, and Southeast Asia. So it's a nice, cute little mix. We'll make it different. We promise you that this is going to be relevant to you. And like I said, if there are any questions, shoot them. Right? But obviously, just give me a heads up. So all yours, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome our panel on stage. He's Chief Executive Officer and Founder, Phygital Private Limited. A warm welcome to Bhavik Javedi. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, we can do better than that. He is Vice President, IT, Virtuous Retail. A warm welcome to Chirag Bunlia. Let's hear for the head, IT, Kaya Limited, Mr. Indresh Pradhan. He is Vice President and Chief Information Officer, Arvind Brands. A warm welcome to Piyush Kumar Chauhan. He is Executive Director, ETP. A warm welcome to Rajkumar Jagasia. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's over to Mr. Siju Narayan and the panel to take us through the next very captivating 1 hour. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Right, so like I promised, very experienced panel out here. I guess between all of us, we've got a collective 140 years of experience in trying to make sense out of retail in India. Haven't got there yet. We'll need your help getting there. And this is collaborative in the true sense of it. What we will be, sorry? Yes, and that's going to be different. We don't want to be sitting, right? So we'll keep standing. If needed, we'll just move amongst you as well. Just as, as just a housekeeping rule, if you see those 2 slides, don't get too distracted by it. I mean, those are just the subtopics that are being discussed at this moment in time. So that if someone wakes up from sleep and wants to figure out where he or she is, he just needs to refer to these 2 slides, all right? The person can understand. Okay, sounds good? Yeah. Okay, great. So let's get phygital with these gentlemen out here on stage. Let's drive straight into it. Piyush and Indresh, question for both of you. Be honest about it. How has your business changed over the past 2 years?
Okay, let me open here. Let me be honest. There are 2 positive and 1 negative moves which happened, if I were to just summarize. So one positive is that you saw that video which was taken 2 years back, right? In which people were asking what is Omni-channel. So one positive thing has happened is Omni-channel is now a reality in the company that we work in. We have already implemented an Omni-channel solution. So that is one positive. The second positive thing which has happened is we have started collecting a lot of data in the organization. And so a lot of our processes, a lot of our decision making, which was so-called relying on non-so-scientific data and methods, has gone into more data-driven and analytical. So these are the 2 positives.
So when you say omni-channel in your organization, does this mean that you and the CEO get together and just discuss omni-channel once a week, or?
We discuss over the coffee.
So is it just the 2 of you, or do you think others are involved as well?
There are a host of people who do that. So.
Okay, so the entire organization is in some way engaged in those discussions.
Absolutely.
Indresh, any different for you?
And the third part, so these are the 2 positive, and if I have to just put in the third thing which has happened is, while we were doing and developing thinking that the customer is A or B, the customer has become Z and X and Z. And so the customer behavior has changed so much that we are kind of struggling to understand what the customer needs today. So the behavior of the customer has changed significantly over the past 2 years, and we are trying to grapple and understand that.
So we as consumers are keeping you guessing. Not bad. Indresh, how have things been for you?
So I had IT at Kaya, and as he said, we are in this Medi-spa business. So we are part retail, part service, completely confused as to what we are. So Omni-channel is as confusing as the topic for us in terms of how to manage the customer, because we are not pure retail, okay? So it's not about just product sales. It's also about the physical interaction with the guest that enters our clinic. So our journey is completely integrated between the product and the services that we offer. We have the highest number of dermatologists under one organization. We have some 180 dermatologists working for us. So omni-channel is a difficult topic in Kaya, right? Because we have doctors who are really technologically challenged. We have marketing team, the typical supply chain issues with omni-channel. We have IT issues that happen with typical omni-channel setup. And we are still trying to grapple as to how do you deploy a omni-channel setup in a services/retail industry. The good part that has happened is at least everybody is talking about it. The doctors are talking about it, we are talking about it, the ops is talking about it, the marketing and digital team are talking. At least we know the word omni-channel, as the last guy said, we at least know the definition of omni-channel. We have, of course, taken some broad steps towards it, so we have now multiple ways of connecting to the customer.
So if I may just interrupt, we will come to that in detail because that's interesting. So Indresh joined Kaya about 2 years back, so in a way this question is very pertinent to him, and he's jumped straight into the chaos called Kaya because it's an incredibly complex business. And the more time I spend with him, the more I realize that it's perhaps one of the most complex businesses which come under the retail spectre. Bhavik, you run both a services company as well as a marketplace. So how have the last 2 years been for you?
So I think we only have seen positives. For us, so I think life has just taken a rocket fuel upward journey. I remember 2007, I was running a payment gateway company that time, and we got a call from a startup in Bangalore, and we rejected on the call saying that you are not even registered office, we can't give you payment gateway, and then we discovered it was Flipkart.com. 2012, a little fast forward journey, I started my service company. It was taking us a typical 6 months kind of sales cycle to convince somebody to go online. 2015, when we launched Preta, which is very much an omni-channel marketplace model that we're working on, we closing our retail conversations in less than 15 minutes. So what has happened is collaboration has become a very big part of overall decision-making journey of businesses. It's not just about what I think is right. It's about what people are doing around me. Should I be participative around it? So I think overall the complete industry has, the definition of success is not just about how I succeed myself. If we are partnering together, collaborating together, it's going to be a much better and larger journey. I think that has changed the way we do business for ourselves. The second important factor we have seen is clearly a fear of disruption. I think the fear of disruption is probably a negative term, but the way we look at it is that has created a lot of positive impact on the way we do our business. Our strategies have, kind of an antithesis, become very dynamic. So they're supposed to be 5-year strategy, but now nobody makes 5-year strategy because you don't know where we would be. Is it going to be a Tesla disrupting something? So fear of disruption has made our strategic, our goals, while the goals remains pretty much the same, what we have made, the way we do our business become very dynamic in some sort. And a small example, again, from my past experiences. So, say for example, even 20 years back, there were radio cabs in London, right? And then there were Meru, which were available on phone, and then came Olas and Ubers. Nothing changed in their businesses, actually. Why they got out-businessed is just the way consumer changed it. Right. So if you're not dynamic and you're taking 15 years and 10 years kind of bets, it's not going to work anymore. So I think there are the two biggest changes that I have seen, and that has really impacted the way we do our business because it's become very easy for us to do business now.
Sure. Quickly, Chirag, very, very quickly, last 2 years.
Sure. Allow me to take a step back and just say, when we were studying, I remember we used to say, customer is the center of everything. We need to focus on customer. Then while moving into the other jobs, I realized that its customer is king. Then became the god. And now in an era where we are talking about there are too many gods, we need to exactly know who this god is. And yes, we are in this organization where I represent, I contribute and handle the IT across the malls. I've been responsible to identify each and every consumer walking into the center. Can we do it? Yes, we are doing it. And this is a change which is coming from management. I don't need to sell. That's a serious change. So the second one is the Uberization of technology, the democratization. That's extremely important because my management comes back and say, no, now we need to go and then bring in a mobile app for our queue busting. Why not? I mean, I don't need to sell. My management comes back to me and says that we need to do. That's a very, very serious change from business perspective.
Good. So, Raj, from what we hear from them, both in terms of the consumer as well as the internal structure, the pressure has been on for the past 2 years. And the word that we hear is disruption. Bhavik, where are you based? In Bombay. We get disrupted every monsoon, right? Every year. So we are used to disruptions. But from a last 2 years perspective, vis-a-vis what the Indian retailers have gone through, what have you seen as far as the retailers in, let's say, Philippines or the Middle East have done?
So good afternoon, everybody. The way we have seen is I want to share the experience in two forms. One is about the customers and one is about ourselves. I think from a customer side, as we can see even in our sessions, supply chain, I think it's too much creation of purchase orders, goods received, done and dusted. It's all changed back to actually consumers. So it's the demand chain that's taken over. You can see from our sessions, the number of supply chain sessions, pardon me, is just 1 or 2. And the demand chain sessions are higher. So what we can clearly see from the international marketplace is the customer experience is become more important than which product to buy from which supplier at which time. It's about my consumer. Today people are not curating their brands, but they're curating their customer. So the customer lifetime value, like one of our customers in Philippines calls it from the womb to the tomb. From the time the consumer starts to buy to their longest life, how do they change? So it's a time of demand chain and it's all gone a combination of physical and digital to your session. I think as a company, for us, what has changed is no longer customers tell us, "Arey, software is free, hai, de do na." It's only costing you a CD and it's only 15 rupees for CD, so free de do na. I think customers have started to pay money and pay decent money for software. So we are very happy about that change.
Okay, that's nice. So any questions, ladies and gentlemen, but till now? Or are you just warming up? Okay. So now one thing that I request you gentlemen is to just keep it short and sweet, right? And as we look into, let's say, what are the top 3 business challenges, Bhavik, I would start with you. 3 top business challenges that you're facing today.
I think biggest challenge is to really make people go beyond thinking technology and thinking solutions.
Okay, number one. Number two?
That's the biggest piece. Second important thing is we have to be ahead of curve ourselves. So we need to be spending a lot of time in understanding and learning ourselves. That pretty much the way technology business that we create product and then we go to market. Now we have to go to market first and then probably think of products. So that's the biggest change or probably challenge that we are facing today. And I think from the third perspective is, we really feel challenged with a lot of probably anyone and everyone in the business. So it's not just about who would just come and become a competitor. So you never knew when probably a recharge business would become a bank. I think that we have to observe and look at every single business out there and ensure that we are not taking them lightly at all.
Sure. So it's about, the first one is, what is it that you said?
It's innovation thinking, solutions thinking.
Solutions, so solutions instead of just process thinking, and then how do you get ahead of yourself, and there's an uncertain market. These are the 3 solutions. Anything other than that, Chirag?
Yeah. So from my perspective, I think the challenge is threefold. Good that you asked 3 only. The deluge of data which we have, both sides. The consumer side as well, they are thrown with tons of data. I mean, they really don't know what to do with it. And the other side of the table, which is the company itself, just too many data inputs and points. So that's one. Second is customers' patience. That's running out. They really cannot have patience of standing in a queue and doing things. They just want everything. And third is the rise of the marketplaces. And in that era,
someone is quite happy.
Yeah. So they fill the gap. So we keep talking about it. Yeah. These are the 3 things.
Sure. Piyush, when you look at your brands that are there in the portfolio, do you, from the perspective of the strategic outlook, see any of the problems that have not been enumerated so far?
So I think, as I said earlier, the main thing is the customer, I should not use the term fickle, but I think the choices that the customer is posing in front of us is so varied and diverse that it is very difficult for us to keep the pace, and that and what is needed from organization like us, and that is what the biggest challenge is. How do we be ahead of that? Because if the customer wants something and we react to it, obviously he will not get that customer experience which everybody is talking about. So how do we be ahead of that digital transformation which the customer is actually demanding, and serve that and give that fantastic experience, which is the prime importance that we are working towards. And I think that would summarize a lot of things, but in gist, that is what as a challenge that we are seeing.
So now I turn to the audience and ask, do you face any challenges which these three gentlemen have not covered? Anything more than this? Yeah?
In retail, all the employees get very habituated to the technology. Like each and every, even a 10th pass employee will use WhatsApp, Facebook. But when we give them a technology wherein they will be empowered to serve the customers or to take the business to the next level, to increase their self, say suppose that some employee is not very good in English, but when we give an app to learn English, but they will not do that. So how come we can enable the employees to use this technology in a better way?
So he's asking a question in terms of, it's a very known fact that for employees to carry forward your brand message, you need to enable such employees with digital means wherein they can have a conversation with the customer. But he's got a basic problem saying that what if they are not good in English or in a language which is right for the consumer? How do you manage it? And Indresh, I can understand why you were so excited to take this up. Please go ahead.
So as I said, we have some 180 dermats. They are all MDs. They use fancy phones. They know how to use WhatsApp for sure. They know how to use iOS, which is not easy. But when you give when you change their life by removing the paper, which they're used to while they are interacting with the guest, and remove that paper out and give them a tablet, things dramatically change, right? Because a doctor is not used to, like you said, a typical sales guy, you give him a tool to sell. It's an easy tool. You show an image, that will help him, aid him. We removed the papers from the clinic, right? So there was no option. Of course, there was a long build-up to the story. So it was not an overnight thing. We transformed our data into digital. We went through a lot of trainings, multiple trainings for the same doctors, convincing them how life will be easier if they use the tablet. For example, in our case, we have to show before and after images, whether we have actually improved the skin. Because the promise is we will make you feel beautiful and you will look beautiful, right? So you have to show the transformation to the customer. What we did was we first targeted that, which was the biggest pain point. And the doctors are now able to show the before and after images. If you can find a way to first kill the biggest pain point, then the smaller things get adapted quickly.
Okay. So essentially, if you take the chicken away, you'll be forced to eat paneer, right? Sure.
Quickly. So this reminds me of my 2011 days when we were doing our business transformation for our company, Aditya Birla. A couple of my colleagues are sitting here. And first time we were trying to introduce the handheld terminals for pickers. So someone who picks up the stocks from the warehouse and keeps it in the crates. So imagine everyone was used to of pen, paper, and there were few pickers who were actually uneducated, but they had an idea that this product has to be picked based on the scripts, right? Now giving them the handheld terminals at that point in time was an extremely challenging task. But would you believe that, as I said, even as you were all saying, people adapt for WhatsApp and Facebook, that couple of pickers who were actually uneducated, they actually picked up and they were one of the fastest pickers in our entire group. Of course, it took 3, 4, 5 rounds of multiple rounds of training and pestering that, yes, you can do it, you're not losing your job, and that actually happened. I'm not exaggerating, and there's some people sitting here can vouch for it.
So what's happened is, while omni-channel has been around for quite some time, it's like more like GST. GST is coming. Now suddenly it's at your doorstep and you're wondering what to do, right? So has been the case with omni-channel, and I've seen this with retailers across the last 21 years that I've been interacting with them. One of the there's a big monster in the room that people tend to just shy away from. Just try to bury it under a carpet, and that's called change management. Right? Now, change management is a serious issue, and that's a serious discipline that needs to be taken to its conclusion. But very, very few retailers do that, and the retailers who take on change management as a discipline are the ones who succeed. Very simple, right? Now, there are ways like Indresh has done at Kaya. You get to succeed because it's a small base, arguably a smaller base, but still, it's a very opinionated population out there. So I guess for the gentleman who asked the question, it's about change management. He's busy tweeting my answers, okay? That's okay. So Raj, change management, an issue. Does it happen across all retailers, or is it very specific to India?
You're right. It's not specific to India. It happens a lot internationally. The way we see in some of the countries that it is easy to adopt. In some of the countries, it's a little bit more difficult to adopt. I think the challenge happens when you're in the developing world and in the developed world. So if you have to adopt something in Singapore, the cost structures, everything is so steep that you got to do it, otherwise Lee Kuan Yew will come. But if it's democracy and it's, I'm going to listen to everybody and I'm going to make the changes what only everybody agrees, then it's a challenge. So I think it's getting the firmness and the benevolence in getting that change happen. Sure. I think that's the difference that we have seen. When we look at something like Singapore, we look at Indonesia, we look at Malaysia, we look at Philippines. I guess they're about 5 to 7 years ahead of us. We are still in the situation where we say it's okay to develop software because I want to save some money and put somewhere else. But internationally, that's not how it happens. The management, the business leaders, everybody has understood that we need to invest in a good software, we need to invest in technology, and we need to enable our people. So the change has to happen at the business leadership and not just down the line. Constant budgets to be allocated to IT projects or to business projects have to happen. And if it happens once in 10 years and then you expect the employees to change, then it's difficult. So I think what we see is that internationally people spend time and money to keep budgets going year on year for technology projects. So some of them would like to make investments to take a leapfrog, and some of them are with their investments so down that they have a challenge and then they put their hands up and say, bail us out of this situation. And that change management is different from the change management when you're taking a leadership position. So like, people wouldn't have invested in omni-channel, but it's there. It's like GST, it's there. It's not that it's not going to be there. So the change management at the beginning of the situation, at the mid and at the end of the situation is a little bit different. But most countries ahead I've seen spend more time thinking and doing ahead of time. So it's a little bit easier for them to do change management.
Sure. Now we'll quickly shift gears, and here, gentlemen, I want you to be very clearly talking only about stuff that you've done within the organization, right? I guess theory, we all know it. We've been also subjected to it since the morning. But let's get very candid and talk about things that you've done in the organization, so that if there's anyone in the audience who wants to reach out to do a similar thing, they can be really enthused to do so. Starting with you, Piyush, what are the technology priorities that have evolved? Because of these business challenges that you face. And please give me an example of at least one such intervention where you believe Urban Brands has succeeded in taking the challenge on. And just spell it out. We'll get into a discussion or a more detailed one later because we're just slightly running out of time.
So as I was kind of emphasizing on one thing around customer journey, which is a very, very important aspect as we are moving into this digital transformation project. One of the things that we are prioritizing at this point of time is how do we make sure that we understand the customer behavior far better than what we can do today.
So, and how do you do that?
And one of the ways of doing it is, omni-channel is understand the customer behavior across channels. So as everyone would appreciate, On an online journey, we know everything. Where he stopped, what he did not do, where he liked, what he did not like. But when a customer, which is 98% or 97% of my business, he walks into my store, I'm not able to trace any of that.
So this is exactly the problem that was kind of reflected in the plenary session today morning, right? The gentleman was talking about in terms of I don't know as to why does a person not buy something that he has not bought. The problem
That's exactly. So we have looked at video technology. We have looked at using sound as a mechanism to track customer behavior. It's all in experimentation phase because we don't know which technology is going to succeed in the future because the landscape itself is changing so fast. We are trying to see if, because we've said that what we've seen is mobile apps is kind of obsolete in today's world. Nobody wants to keep any apps.
Sure.
So obviously we have to find an alternate way by which we can understand what the customer did when he came into the store. And I don't think we have solved, so you said, have you solved it? No, we have not solved it, but we are working actively in terms of trying to understand and put in which technology will be relevant to help us understand the customer journey better and use that data to service and provide that experience to the customer.
Thank you so much, Piyush, for being candid on that because, you know, the point of sale, the WMS, the transportation management system, these are all passe. I mean, they're all business as usual, right? Indresh, you talked about the iPads. Anything else that you want to spell on? But keep it brief, please, so that, you know, we just get an idea in terms of what is it that Kaya has done.
I think that was a transformation for us where we digitized the clinical data. And for the first time, Kaya has clinical data across all our 123 locations, centrally located. So that was a big step. We are still to, as he said, we have somehow managed to pull the data in. We are yet to exploit the data so that you know, business sees a leap in how we identify our customers when they walk in. So we are at the stage where we have managed the first step. There are a couple of more steps to go.
Raj, similar on a global scale, do you see the retailers behaving the same manner, or do you get requests for something even more weird?
So I think, like I was saying, we're looking at a huge shift that's happened from supply chain side to the demand chain side, and that's changing a lot of things for the customers. So one was the omni-channel part, which, you know, customers are no longer looking at coming across to the store, but finding it out on the internet and then buying it at the store, looking at click and collect, looking at click to deliver, looking at endless aisles.
And you've done this at a retailer, without naming the retailer, of course.
Yeah,
you could.
we've done it for a few retailers, and I think one of the important things is that they have understood that it's a unified consumer experience and a unified view to the inventory. So those are the changes. In most cases, we have seen that companies have had, you know, a physical retail business unit and electronic commerce or a digital business unit, which is different from each other. And both of them work separately from each other. However, that's not how the customer expects. The customer expects that if I've come to your store, the experience that I must have with you, irrespective if I come to your internet store or I come to your physical store, it must be the same. So the way they're looking at a change, Siju and the team, is what we've experienced is consumers' experience has got to be common and unified. Inventory look has to be unified. So the need for change and the technology has got to be there that accommodates both of these and not just one of them. That's the change that we're seeing. I guess it'll come here also because we're now seeing, you know, Amazon and Flipkart, but, you know, before that we had so many of them, so people were really scared that what's happening to the retail world, but nothing is happening. It's changed back. The other thing that we are seeing is that most of our banks, financial institutions would fund inventory and everything that's linked to the working capital. But in the international market, that's changed a bit because the way you have your consumer data or your customer data, that's how valuations happen now. What's your customer in the age group of, you know, 15 to 20, and 20 to 30, the tweens, and how they're migrating. So the entire financial systems have started to migrate to the way the consumer information is there and not just the way the inventory. And that's why some of these e-commerce companies had insane valuations, not because they carried inventory, but because they carried customer information. So those changes we are seeing a lot more in Asia.
Okay. Customer information as well as a global you know, view of inventory. These are two of the problems that you would really want to solve before you go to bed, but that hardly happens, right? Now, from the perspective of purely Indian consumers, you've done a lot of stuff. You've been talking omni-channel over coffee, tea, whatever. You've taken steps, but what do you still believe are some of these problems still posed by Indian consumers? And please talk about from a Phygital perspective, wherein it's both online as well as offline. So, what, as a company, Piyush, how does Arvind Brands, view these problems?
So we launched this omni-channel platform about a year back, and we're learning out of it. Let me be honest here. And one of the things I think you raised about change management, I'll give a very crisp example of what it is and how important it is in this omni-channel context. So we have all the physical stores. Everybody said, put the inventory online, make sure that all the stores can see inventory of other stores, see the inventory of the warehouse, everything all fine, hunky-dory, perfectly fine. You build an order management solution which looks at multiple algorithms, sophisticated algorithms to find out which is the best fulfilling store to fulfill that order, right? All sounds perfectly fine, yeah? And the customer comes in, clicks, this, let's say the order drops to A store in A location. Now, as a routine, we said, okay, when the order drops to that store has to pick up, and within a particular number of hours, it has to pick it, pack it, so that the customer come and pick it. And what we realized is that in the initial days, is that about more than 35% of the orders were getting failed. Okay. Now, can anyone guess why? Has anyone faced this kind of a problem while implementing omnichannel? Can anyone take a guess why it was happening? No, we solved that inventory problem, as you said. Yeah. Perfect. He's a change management guy. He's exactly the change management guy. The store staff has never been trained enough, or I would say there was not much incentive for that store manager to fulfill that order. And although your systems are sophisticated, also you solve the inventory problem, you solve the data problem, you solve the order problem. If that guy who has to fulfill the last order is not motivated enough to fulfill that, he will never be able to do that. So while technology will solve a lot of problems, you need to make sure that people are taken along in that journey so that they understand and they actually come along and service you to achieve that omni-channel reality.
The classic smile. Absolutely. Good. And brick and mortar was trudging along happily along the highway, and then suddenly a very errant little guy called e-commerce came along and kind of messed up brick and mortar's happiness. What's your favorite pastime on an e-commerce site? Be honest out here. How many of you guys return the goods? Okay, I'm counting all the smiles as an yes, which is about 80% of this whole audience. Returns. Big issue? Yeah.
So returns, I mean, from our perspective, it's not really applicable but coming from a previous background where it made a lot of sense, it's a nightmare. It's something like, very difficult to manage because, A, you have to take care of the reverse logistics. B, you have to again, try and persuade the consumers to, start ordering again or change product and all, which again costs you a burden. So it's actually exceptionally pain area, but in order to bring on board the bigger set of consumers into the online world, probably we have given a leeway here. So
and let's ask someone as to how high the degree of pain is as far as return is concerned.
So I think, so first thing is the returns itself from retailer's perspective, as you rightly mentioned, customer ke liye wo pastime hai. So time pass is tarah ka hai ki it's as simple as that I come out, I buy on 3 marketplaces, 3 sizes, okay, because the one which comes earlier I'll keep, rest all I will.
The world is my store.
I'll send it back. Yeah. Second, obviously I'll measure all 3 sizes and I'll keep one which fits me, and after 1 month I might still return that as well, which I've kept. Now imagine poor retailer who has probably given a commission to all 3 marketplaces for a sale which was assumed as a closed sale, 3x, 3x of the channels, 3x of the number of sizes that they ordered. So he ends up spending a huge commission fee. He ends up spending close to 100, 150 rupees on each courier. So he ends up spending another 400 rupees, 300 rupees on I would anytime prefer giving a free cab to my customer and say, come to my store, why? Why you want to really go out and ask me a size and ask on 3 different channels? You have a nearest store.
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you offer a free cab service? So do you guys know this? So on Preta.com, he offers, so I don't want to steal the thunder from him. Why don't you just explain as to what is that you do?
Pretty much what we spoke. It's not we offering it. It's retailers who are offering this free cabs, right?
Okay.
So for example, so one thing we did very clearly before we started Preta was that let's relook at e-commerce. Let's relook at the digital as a channel. Is it really a channel or is it really something more than just a channel? So then we started looking at other verticals beyond retail. We saw banks, we saw food, we saw movies, cinemas, entertainment, every category, and we never saw that it became a competitive channel to the existing business ever. Mobile never came and say, okay, I will now be a mobile bank and that bank is better than, or it did never become, or probably say the way Redbus worked, it improved the real challenges or a way Book My Show worked or way, most of this Zomato worked, right? It actually aggregated and make the experiences of consumer better. It didn't make it transactional. So for example, if I go to Myntra.com, it's a very transactional experience for me, but what if I want to go to a store?
Sure.
Is digital really solving the problem of experiential behavior that we all are used to? And if you're not making this a utility, and if you're making this as a channel, then there is a problem.
Sure. Raj, we will come to the technology part of this concept, because this is a very, very crucial one, because it impacts quite lots of things. It's not just about physical movement of that goods back, it's about the financial part of it as well. So guys, returns are painful. So my only request to you is next time before you return, think for 2 minutes and then return, okay? So probably that's a better thing to do, right? Karma, there will be some balancing of karma there. Now, this is something which is very common these days. What do you think this concept is called as? Any idea? Showrooming, absolutely, and it's a nightmare. And showrooming was such a nightmarish concept that about 2 years back at the NRF, this was the topic of the discussion of the plenary, wherein the head of Macy's said the biggest problem that keeps him awake is, I don't know whether to allow that guy into my store or not, because the chances of him actually skimming the net and finding a better deal and walking out of my store after looking at stuff is very high. But if I don't let him into the store, I anyways lose a sale, a walk-in and a sale. So things are pretty difficult out there. Now with all these challenges, let's take a very hard look at ourselves and what happens in Texas stays in Texas, so please be open about it. Do we really have the technologies today to help us face these challenges? Because I'm sure there are the people in the audience who would want to understand, and there's a reason why they are here, to understand as to how can technology help them. But we've spoke about all the challenges. Do we really have the technologies that can help us, tide over these challenges is a question that I would like to ask. Raj, you want to take that? Because I know I'm putting you under the scanner here.
Yeah, sure. I'm still coming back from the consumer's point of view, because all of us, before we are retailers, we're also consumers, aren't we? When as a consumer I expected a moon to be gift wrapped and given? Never. They just need what they need and they want an experience. So I think like how Piyush said is very true. The technology works, but it's first about the people, then the product, and then the processes. So the technology is available. We know what we have to buy, we know who's the customer, we know how to sell to them, we know how to analyze. I don't think there is anything that we don't really know. They may change from one version to the next version, so technologies are available. The point is, are we able to leverage them? Are we actually buying enough technology and using them, or are we holding and hesitating? So the challenge is about holding and hesitating in enabling technology. I think Piyush said a very pertinent point about training at the last mile at the order. So I just want to say, for example, we have a customer in Indonesia which has got about 2,000 odd stores, and they've converted 65 stores to fulfillment centers. And I'll just take a step back to saying, remember a school bus? it drops the students in the morning to the school and is lying idle the whole day? Or am I going to use the bus the whole day? So the stores start in the morning at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Customers start to come at about 1 o'clock. They have trained their store staff to actually do delivery.
Okay.
All right, so what am I doing between 11 and 1 is actually pretty much very little. But that individual is bases his earnings on actually his salaries and variables. The more you teach him to earn more money, the more he's willing to. So the technology-wise, the consumer has said, I want click and deliver it from my store. Have we leveraged that technology enough, and have we trained the person at the store to actually go and deliver and earn his commissions? So I think technologies are enough and available, and I'll really request for some of our colleagues who would be interested. We have a home outside this room for the next 2 days. We've got the technology available over there. Please do have a look at the ETP store stall that we have outside. World-class technologies are available. I think adoption, change management, and usage of those are a challenge. I think technologies are available enough.
Yeah, I mean, we also heard Mr. Ramesh Menon, the CEO of Hypercity, speak in the morning, right? He said every year he comes for something like this, he sees a host of technologies, then he gets back and sees he can perhaps use only 10% of them, right? Now, there are multiple reasons as to why that could be. But one thing's for sure, that the technologies are there. It's about that cliche people, process, and technology. It's about how do we solve these the problems along these three matrices. And which is where I would want to come to this. We are into the last quarter of the debate or the discussion. Again, what I would be particularly interested in knowing, and I'm sure a lot of the members of the audience would be knowing, is what have been your obstacles in this omni-channel journey of yours, right? Both internal and external. I mean, you could be frank, because I'm sure no organization is so different from the other that the obstacles are not different, right? So, who would want to take a shot at it first? Your obstacles. All the goody things are gone. Now let's talk about the bad ones.
Change management is the biggest barrier, as we discussed. And the second is...
CFO is not?
Yeah, we have to make him the kind of chairman of the steering committee, so that problem is solved. So.
Okay.
The other big problem is the siloed data pockets which are there. So for example, it is no longer relevant that I have data only of the customer which visits my store or is there within my ecosystem, and that data is becoming less and less relevant for a retailer like us, because we are in fashion. We have to basically now see how we can integrate the omni-channel platform, which actually captures the data within our network, and then try to marry it with the other unstructured social data.
Correct.
And then how do you basically take it from omni-channel 1 to omni-channel 2? In a sense, the first omni-channel is how do you integrate one view of the inventory, one view of the customer within the organization, and then you can have one view of the global customer to take it to the next level. That is one of the big obstacles that I feel. And I think technology is working towards solving that problem, but it will take a few years before we have solutions around how do we get an integrated view of what my customer did and what is the persona of that customer.
So Piyush has actually touched upon a very important topic, and I've worked with a retailer, with a large Indian retailer, I can't take the name right now. They're into multiple businesses. They've got about 6 to 7 kinds of loyalty programs, so that gives you an idea in terms of the span of businesses that they're into. One of the first things that they did is to actually sit back and figure out as to where do they start on this whole omni-channel journey, and they realized that the starting point of all such journeys is a very unglamorous thing called, anyone? Consolidation of data, give it a slightly more scientific name. Sorry? Master data management, right? It looks like looks like a very, it's an unglamorous thing. It's a dirty job that one has to do. But if you don't get that right, you can be rest assured you will not get the omni-channel philosophy right. Because it's all about one view of customer data, one view of your product data, one view of your inventory, without getting into a very rigorous process of master data management. One really can't do it. Right? Now, Indresh, internal, external obstacles. Internal, let's hear the internal one from you.
Internal, yes. Again, I'm unique to
Not
that
change
extent.
management.
Yeah, besides the change management, our cycle doesn't end when the click to cart and pay happens. We make more money when somebody enters our clinic, right? So besides the omni-channel integration for the product, the next difficult part for us, how to convert that online transaction of that person and get him to enter my clinic. Because most of the money is made at the clinic and not with the online products. Online products is a small part of the big business that we do. And that's where the typical e-commerce doesn't work. So we have to prod, we have to help understand their skin, we have to help them interact with the doctor through various modes. So we have online interactions with the doctors, and then ensure that the person enters our clinic. And that's when our omni-channel actually kind of completes the 360 degrees.
Chirag, quickly, on challenges.
So, external factors itself, it includes technology, it includes policies. All of these make a lot of impact on, for us to achieve our vision. Classic example is, 2.5 years back, we thought, okay, beacons are going to be a big one. So we put beacons all across the shopping mall to say that, okay, we'll find out analytics, we'll do proximity marketing. It didn't fly because people never used to, neither they used to download our app, nor they were enabling their Bluetooth. Right?
So how many of you use beacons? I mean, the retailers out here, how many of you have tried using beacons or believe beacons is the next thing which will take the world by storm?
Good, very good.
So someone's happy
so
that he's been vindicated.
I'll move on to the next problem. So the next problem was, okay, we realized, okay, now beacons are not working. Let's try and give free Wi-Fi, where we'll try and, try and capture the data where consumer is coming, who this consumer is, and then where is, so the generation of heat map and, which store is spending, the consumer is actually spending time. We said, fine, well and good. Then came the Jio. They literally killed our Wi-Fi business because we were not able to get, because 30 to 40% drop was there because everyone started latching onto the Jio. Now we had to evolve the next technology where we said, okay, now we'll start capturing the mobile data as well, because I need to know what consumer is doing, where the consumer is spending time, right? So I have to keep evolving and keep, so then comes the internal stakeholder. Last time you said you spend money on beacons, then you said you want Wi-Fi, now you want data, now next time you'll say you want me, right? So it doesn't work like this. So technology and the external factors are fairly fragile, and we need to keep adapting to it, because our ultimate goal is to get that data. And that's why I said in the beginning of our discussion that yes, we are in a position where we can actually find out that this X person, we don't have a name there or face there, that this X person has walked in. If he latches onto my Wi-Fi, I know the face. If he uses my food code, then I know what he's eating, what he's doing. And if he is staying in my hotel, then I know everything about him. Right? So if I'm able to corroborate all of these data sources and then make use of it, it makes great sense. I mean, you as a consumer walk in and then say, welcome, Siju. We welcome you to VR, and since you are a Max customer, you have a 10% offer. You will not feel, I mean, normally as a consumer, you are getting just an SMS. You will not feel bad about it. Say, A, because I'm personalizing it. B, I know that you are a Max customer, and then I'm giving something relevant to you. It makes a lot of difference if we can bring in all the data sources by continuously evolving the technology and the external factors.
Yeah. While this is where I've had a few arguments with a few retailers as well. Providing Wi-Fi or providing beacons or providing any kind of connectivity is just not the answer. It's about how do you make sure that there's a business case behind it. What's in it for the consumer, right? As a consumer, or you as a consumer, you're going to walk into a situation thinking, what's in it for me? IBM has worked extensively with Macy's, and it's a long, painful project. And that's primarily because while it appears very simple, the whole concept of providing Wi-Fi has to be backed up by some credible engagement strategies from retailers. Without those engagement strategies, I mean, you might as well go to Starbucks and have coffee. You get Wi-Fi there as well, right? So now coming to this question, Raj, I'm going to put you on the mat here a little in terms of, are retailers really ready for omni-channel? Just forget that we are standing here. But it would be great if you could give me an example of a retailer who's excelled and perhaps an example of a retailer who tried but could not?
I won't name, but I can give an example of a customer, and I'll just take the same reference. So here is a retailer who's got about 180 brands in a country with about 2,000 stores. So before you go omni-channel, you got to take a permission for the brands to sell it also omni-channel along with going on the physical store. So they took all that. But can they make all the 2,000 stores into fulfillment centers? No, you can't. So they actually took about 65 stores, trained that staff, and made them into a fulfillment center. They did not just have a separate team for physical and a separate team for digital. They unified the teams, unified the processes, and therefore the customer unification and the inventory unification could happen, of course, with a lot of training and change management. So that was done very well. Now, like we were discussing a moment ago, whatever is sold, there may be a return. So if I'm a multi-brand retailer, then I have to give it to you from each of those stores and then return it back to each of those stores. But I have made it in one invoice and I have to return it back to you separately, and then the whole accounting for it, it just gets complex. So I think sitting down and putting the pen to the paper and yet defining the whole process of upstream, downstream, reverse logistics, and all of that was very essential. So they crossed that bridge doing the right things. Of course, it had its challenges, but they were able to overcome because they had documented well. I'll give another example of a customer that we were working with, and we are trying to figure out those challenges. So we are talking about Phygital. We are saying it's a combination omni-channel. The customer has seen something on our website, has ordered it, come to the store physically. Because now I want him to collect from the store and I want to sell more to him. Now that invoice, the mall owner also wants a piece of that action, because your rents are co-shared, aren't they?
Someone's nodding very vigorously.
I know. So if we have not pinned it right to that level, that how are we going to execute that level? Yes, I've put an omni-channel site, I've driven the traffic, they've come over here, I've invoiced, now I have a dispute with my partner. Now, till I don't resolve the dispute with the partner, I cannot go through with the strategy. So I think putting the pen to the paper to the nth as much as possible, detailing it out right at the beginning, the combination and the collaboration between the business and the IT team, I think those are very essential. So those done well, I think it's not so difficult.
Perfect. So what we've seen over the past 45, 47 minutes is that we've understood from these gentlemen in terms of the business scenario of the past 2 years, how it's undergone a change. We've also understood from them as to what is it that they're doing in their personal capacities to tide over these changes. They've been candid about talking to us about the problems that they are facing, and we've also had a kind of a global idea in terms of how things are. Finally, the last lap, very, very quickly, succinctly, 3 do's and don'ts for folks sitting out here who want to go the Phygital way. What is it that from the bottom of your heart would want to advise the team out here?
So I will start with do's. So do's, one, I think what Raj rightly mentioned, you can't have e-com head and business head, so you do one business. Second, do for me is do collaborative thinking. If you are doing central thinking, if you say I want to, it's not going to be adapted at the bottom level, so you have to start with all coming in together. And third important thing for me is do risk. So you have to really go out and market and test waters. You can't be analyzing for long times and then probably, probably as I said, the scenarios changes and you might think that the actual business was wrong. So for me, these are the two.
And the don'ts? What is it that you should not do?
I think pretty much, what I spoke as do's is,
So I mean, asking a serial technopreneur like him as to what is it that one shouldn't do is actually a ridiculous question, because he would want to do everything. So maybe, Chira, you could help in terms of what should people not do?
Okay, so don't get carried away with the fact that we have to go omni-channel. No. What we need to do is we need to solve the business problem. As long as that vision is there to solve the business problem, the solutions will fall in line. Technology, external factors will keep evolving. We have to keep adapting to it. Consumer behavior, pattern buying, everything would change. we have to keep evolving and working in that direction.
Indresh,
Very
one
quickly.
don't.
Yeah. So we don't do anything in digital if it is not backed up by a physical action in the physical world, either by a process or a program. That's as simple as that.
Perfect. Piyush.
Don't, okay? Don't copy what others have done. It will never work for you. Please try to innovate. That is the only way to survive.
Cool. Raj, your final word on this as we head into the last minute.
Yeah, I would suggest that don't take customer for granted because sands change, times change, and it shifts. And somebody said, you know, we were doing everything right, but I don't know what went wrong. Your customer changed. So if you're not watching what your customer is doing and supporting them and collaborating with the business, leadership cannot be taken for granted. It will change. So listen to your consumers, and that's, I think, the most important aspect.
Sure. So in general, what works for the other person may or may not work for you, and make sure that you have a phased approach to things. And I guess I would like to add one more aspect out here: be ready to course correct if necessary. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this session. What we tried to do was to kind of make sense of how retailers are managing this omni-channel journey. Very quickly, as I was kind of preparing for this, I came across rather four slides or four graphs. Right. I'll just quickly take you through. You can go out and check later on. You could get a copy of this presentation as well. The credits are there in all the slides where the content is not mine. So it's not very clear, but what this tells you is how global players are mapped on. Okay, thank you. So these are the mass players. How are they mapped on being e-commerce focused, omni-channel laggards, omni-channel retailers, and in-store focused? I found this a very, very interesting infographic. And take it with a pinch of salt, obviously. But then, these are leaders in the world. They're doing some things right. Some of them take a long, long time to do things. But when a Tesco moved from a centralized fulfillment model to a warehouse or a store fulfillment model, I think they took about 2 years to do it, right? So obviously, there are risks. So very quickly, and these are the large UK retailers, and this kind of talks about the luxury players. Now, interesting, this is a chart which really interested me. If you look at it, everyone's towards the left, with a lot of them being, you pay a high price for each one of the products, and they are actually laggards as far as omnichannel is concerned. And these are some of the prestige brands within UK. Right? Last but not the least, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Any more questions? Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi. I'm from a jewelry retail industry.
Sure.
We're into jewelry and watches. So my question is, if a retailer, I have around 5 stores. So if a retailer wants to go digital, like the basic question, I'm just coming down to the basics. So if I want to plan a journey from ERP to CRM to HR to, going.
That's for a video. I need to play it.
So ultimately giving that omni-channel experience which we are talking about, like, CRM for having the data, ERP for your inventory and finance, and an online, some site like a WooCommerce or a Shopify, or it may be a Hybris, whatever it may be. So can you please throw some light, because such good people are there, and I thought like...
If you ask me, that's actually a 3-month consulting engagement.
So that's why I thought this must be free.
Okay, so we will not spend too much time on it. What I would suggest is please catch all of these gentlemen after this. But if someone can just give a quick pointer, any one of you.
See, what I'm looking at it like...
Quickly, so if you have 5 stores, you can do it in Excel. Nothing to worry about. Okay. Yeah. So try it on Excel, see what works, then implement a solution. Don't go for an ERP, CRM, order management, all that. By that time you implement, everything will change on the customer side. So start small, fail early, and learn from it.
No, still, the problem, I'm sorry, but I do not agree with that view.
So can we, if you don't mind, can we take the discussion outside?
The reason is one last thing, because you don't get the data right. If you don't have the right solution like a SAP or a Microsoft.
So the problem what he's talking about, again I'll try to refine it, is by the time you decide on what these solutions are, the goalpost has changed.
I agree completely.
So that's the issue,
also I'm facing.
right? So we'll take that up.
Thank you.
And you know, sorry, no more questions, because on a very selfish note, I need to run this for you. You guys must have seen this, right? Now please laugh, right?
I bought something from you last week, and I'm very disappointed. Oh, yeah? What's the problem? Yeah, well, my BlackBerry is not working. What's the matter? Run out of juice? No, it's completely frozen. Oh, yeah, I can see that. I'll tell you what. Let's try it on orange.
By the way, how many of you know what a BlackBerry is?
That's got a few black spots, you see. Oh, dear, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. What the hell do I do to get my BlackBerry working? Well, it could be an application issue. But where do you store that BlackBerry? Well, it's on my desktop. Well, you could try using a mouse to drag the BlackBerry to the trash. Then after you've done that, you might want to launch the BlackBerry from the desktop. Well, I've already tried that a few times. I mean, all it did was mess up Windows. Well, it might be worth waiting a couple of weeks. They got the latest BlackBerries coming in then. Well, could you give me a date? Certainly. Let me put that date in my diary. Anything else I can help you with? Yes. I've also got a problem, to be honest, with my Apple. Oh, dear. That is an old Apple, isn't it? Yeah. When did you buy that? Last week. Last week? Oh, they brought out 2 new Apples since then. What's the problem with it? Well, I've tried to put my dongle in it, and it won't fit. Oh, yeah. And how big's your dongle? Well, I don't know much about these things, but my wife's seen a few dongles in her time. And she says it's a little bit on the small side. Well, I'm afraid there's not a lot I can do about that. Tell you what, let me try booting it. No, it's crashed. Anything else I can help you with? Well, funnily enough, yes. My grandson's birthday soon, you see. Now, he's already got an Apple and a BlackBerry. I mean, have you got anything else that you might just like? Well, we're doing a special offer on these. I mean, I can't make head or tail of them, but the kids seem to like them. Oh, yeah. Xbox. 360.
So thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being such